Greetings, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland. Behind me is the house where Tom Barry lived and indeed died. So Tom Barry is very well known in Cork, though he was in fact born in Kerry, so Cork claims him. His father was an RIC officer, that's police officer. He was born in 1898. So Tom Barry is best known as being commander of the West Cork's flying column, IRA West Cork Flying Column, 1920 to 21. Anyway, he moved to Rosscarbery as a child. He grew up there. He left school very young. Was the norm at the time. 12 was the end of compulsory schooling, so you could stay on. Most people didn't, and that was that. I'm not sure what jobs he did first of all, but 1915 came, and the First World War was in full swing. He was 17 years old, and he decided to join the British Army, which was then a quite uncontroversial thing to do. So we're part of the United Kingdom. The British Army was our army. Some people were Republicans, wanted to break us away from the United Kingdom entirely. Most people were Home Rulers, wanted to Home Rule within the United Kingdom, a bit like Scotland's position within the United Kingdom today. So you should read his autobiography, Guerrilla Days in Ireland, in which he says that he joined the army for no other reason to get a gun, to see the world, to feel like a man, and blah, blah, blah. I knew nothing of nations great or small, so went out serving in Mesopotamia, what we now call Iraq. And the Easter Rising occurred, and he read about that, and his head was a swim with questions. What was this all about? Which side should he be on? According to himself. So he came back to Cork right after the First World War, tried to continue his education, and it's vital what is omitted from his autobiography. So Armistice Day, 1919, as 11th of November, and he had pride of place. I think it was at Clonakilty, some small town of West Cork. Lowering the Union flag or whatever, the commemorations for the soldiers and sailors who'd been killed in the war. So there he was, touching the British flag, perceiving no incompatibility between being British and being Irish. So what was the next step? Then he got involved in the IRA. In early 1920, heard the RIC wanted to arrest him, interrogate him. He thought they'd beat him up, which they sometimes did. There was a conflict in full swing. Hundreds of people had been killed already. So that was that. He went on the run. So there's some IRA men who did their ordinary jobs as farmers, as Jarvey drivers, stevedores and so on, as clerks, shop assistants, and there was those who were on the run because the RIC were looking for them, who'd be hiding out, sleeping in whatever dugouts, in bivouacs or in people's houses. So he was a wanted man, and he organised lots of attacks on the Crown forces. There was the Cross Barry fight, and Charlie Hurley, his idol and IRA man, was killed. Then there was the Kilmichael ambush, which is a highly controversial episode in November 1920, fighting against the auxiliaries. So the RIC were very under strength, and so they recruited men from Great Britain. Previously, almost everybody in the RIC had been Irish. So the auxiliaries, their role was just that, auxiliary, to help out. So the RIC found it difficult to do ordinary policing duties, chasing up people stealing sheep or pickpockets or fraud or whatever. They were mainly having to deal with the IRA, and the IRA trying to make it impossible to conduct ordinary policing duties, to try and get people to regard them as the enemy and so on. The IRA saying, if you've got a problem, if you're a victim of theft or whatever, come to us, we'll deal with it. And the IRA even formed their own police units. They almost never had prisons, so giving people beatings, chaining them up to church railings overnight, exiling them, giving them 24 hours to leave Ireland or it's death. Sometimes torture, sometimes killing them. But anyway, so the auxiliaries were there solely to fight the IRA. They were not carrying out ordinary police duties. And so they made the mistake, some auxiliaries in West Cork, of establishing a pattern of driving the same route for 2 Sunday afternoons in a row. And the IRA thought, well, they might do the same a 3rd Sunday afternoon in a row. So the flying column, they laid an ambush at Kilmichael, this lonely spot on a windswept moor near Macroom, and sure enough, shortly before dusk, the auxiliaries, 2 lorries came through, and the rest is history. So there's no doubt the IRA won. The disputed point is, did they kill the auxiliaries before surrender or after? You can see the video of this, the only video of it where Tom Barry is talking about it, and he's giving all the tales of lying. His blink rate goes up at the crucial point. He's rubbing his nose, he's looking away, he's rubbing his mouth. So there's a lot of evidence that he did get them to surrender and then killed them. Well, even he says he killed them after a surrender, but he claimed there'd been a full surrender trick first of all. I'd have to go through the whole thing. There were two lorries. They were separated by some distance. Some of them surrendered, the others didn't, carried on fighting. Was a ruse de guerre, and at least 2 of his men were shot because of that trick, and blah blah blah. But you know, even if they had surrendered, he hadn't killed them after surrender, it was still a success for him, because only 3 of his men were shot, only 1 fatally, I think, and they defeated 18 auxiliaries. Now, obviously, the IRA had more soldiers, or more fighters, perhaps I should say, which was obviously completely sensible. Anyone would have a numerical superiority if they could do. So that was him. And then the truce came of July 1921, which observed the treaty was signed. He was dead against it, and he fought in the Civil War. He was captured, not executed. Also, the Irish Free State was founded. The new Free State government was far more merciless than the Crown forces, executing people willy-nilly, at least 84 people, and often they were real minnows in the IRA, not senior IRA men. So he remained like that, and wouldn't recognize the Free State and blah blah blah. And he was married. He married in 1922. Michael Collins was at his wedding, and I've never met Tom Barry. I was alive in his lifetime. I met people who did know him, and said that he found the Civil War to be heartbreaking because it was brother against brother, or as one book put it, green against green. He didn't manage to have children. His wife was slightly older than him, Leslie Price, and she was in Cumber na Món, as in the women's organization of the IRA, going around in a uniform well into her 60s. And she cheerfully admitted that she cheated a lot in the 1989 election and cast many bogus votes to help Sinn Féin, which is more or less the IRA's political party. So in the Second World War, he briefly joined the Irish Army. Now, for a lot of IRA men, this was anathema. They didn't accept the authority of the Irish government. The Leinster House government was a partitionist parliament, and so on, and they considered De Valera being a turncoat and blah blah blah. So he was only in the army for about a month in 1940, just in case Germany or indeed the UK invaded. But for doctrinaire Republicans, this was unacceptable. Obviously, most people have overlooked and forgotten that, and don't really understand the minutiae of Republican theology. And that was that. He had some job with the Harbour Board. He retired in the 60s. When the IRA had a campaign in the late 50s, wasn't involved. He was all for the IRA attacking England in the Second World War, but that came nowhere. He didn't like bombs going off in civilian areas, so he said. Obviously, he was an armchair supporter of the IRA in the 70s. So he died in 1980, and he requested a private funeral. So though his grave got pride of place in St Finbarr Cemetery, there are very few people who attended his funeral. Bobby Sands was an IRA man who committed suicide in Belfast in 1981 by starving himself to death. And you can read his prison scribblings in which he marks the death of Tom Barry. So that is Tom Barry, who was fairly successful at what he does. I mean, his reputation is somewhat overblown, and certainly was one for blowing his own trumpet. And he claims his nemesis was General Ernest Percival of the Essex Regiment, and Percival later surrendered at Singapore. It was an ignominious defeat for the British Empire, and then the Japanese had marched into Singapore playing the Boys of Carmichael, a song about his success in West Cork, which is very hard to believe, because obviously this was a street brawl compared to the Second World War. About 18 people killed, as opposed to the Battle of Singapore, in which thousands of people were killed. Would the Japanese even heard of it? Would they know? Would they care? I don't think so. Had very little application to a conventional fight that they were fighting in Malaya. Well, so that is Tom Barry. He's very well known in this part, so you can see a plaque on his house in Rosscarbery. Okay, I shall switch it off now.